This week on the iRacing Downshift, it's a Firecracker 400 special.
I hope that my 43 drivers, when we get to Wednesday, that they're just sick.
Parker Kligerman and Landon Cassill talk about what makes their race unique.
If you went to someone in real racing and said, we're going to make a almost month-long event, they would look at you like you're insane.
And some of their different approaches to life.
I have enough children to go between us.
Landon's got enough kids to start the Landon Cassill Formula 1 team.
All this and more, so strap in.
Welcome to the iRacing Downshift. I'm your host, Greg West. I'm back with the boys, Kevin Bobbitt and Chris Leone. Episode 50 and a half.
This is the first time we've ever done a half episode. It's awesome.
Episode. It's almost like we just have two really good guests, and we have a really big event on iRacing this week. And maybe
so we kind of had to do it right now, and we didn't have time to do the rest of the podcast. Yeah. So it was like, do it this way or not, right?
And now Steve won't yell at us for this.
He'll yell at us for other things, but that's
just
fine.
For this,
We're good then.
Get this out. If Chris edits it in time,
it's all on Chris's shoulders.
All on Chris's shoulders.
No pressure.
And you people wonder why I'm in therapy.
I don't wonder why.
Okay, fair enough.
Boy, you really tossed the softball out there. So, lots going on in iRacing. Spa 24 last weekend. We've got the Firecracker 400 coming on this week, and we have the Race for More 2.4 coming up on August 3rd. That's a Thursday night. So a bunch of big special events coming up.
That's the MS Society fundraiser, right?
Yes, that is the fundraiser.
Yes.
But you told me to be brief.
All right,
so
sorry.
Being brief. But check a forum post near you and check out the MS Society's website and be ready to save your money up so you can give Steve Myers and Chad Knaus a penalty, because that's just fun for everybody. Really.
Absolutely.
100%. So without further ado, though, let's get our great guests on the podcast. So once again, Parker Kligerman, Landon Cassill, and they're here to talk about the Firecracker 400 on iRacing. All right, we're back with all three of us this time. Kevin and Chris have joined for the interview portion, along with Parker Kligerman and Landon Cassill, here to talk about some oval race coming up, something like that. Chris, why don't you take it away?
Just when I got out of interviews, you guys have dragged me back in.
You're welcome. Other duties as assigned.
Yes. Parker, Landon, awesome to have you guys on here to talk about the third edition of the Firecracker 400, and an awesome event. I've been able to be involved a couple of times over the years, but I kind of want to start all the way back at the beginning, because I don't even know the story of how you guys kind of met up and started working together. So I kind of want to go back to the beginning. When did you two meet in racing, and how did you guys kind of strike up a friendship in the first place?
Landon, take it away.
Parker and I have always kind of had shared experiences as in the sport as professionals. We both kind of were brought into NASCAR as young drivers attached to large organizations. We were both tasked around the same time period as well, as test drivers for these big organizations, Parker being at Penske, myself being at Hendrick Motorsports. And so our journeys were very similar. And we also even, had similar experiences through those early years in the Busch and Nationwide and Xfinity series, all one series, but three different names there. We had different or similar experiences through those series because, we were kind of given chances, but they weren't proper, full-time, fully invested. We just had interesting experiences and a lot of alignment there. So we were kind of always adjacently friends, I think, even, when we raced in the Cup Series against each other when he was at Swan. And obviously we're both, strikingly handsome. So that's
Landon, we're not on
fair
video,
point.
so nobody can see that you showed up in a tank top.
Yes, that's right.
Let it be known for the record.
A few more weeks. The summer's almost over, so I got to.
Quick follow-up question. You guys are such good friends on track. Does that mean you've never had any contact on track, like ever?
I don't know. I think we've raced.
I don't think we've ever ran into each other.
We've never.
Well, good for you.
Never had any, major.
Maybe in iRacing though, right?
Where are you guys at this week?
100%. 100% iRacing.
Parker's totally going to dump Landon now.
The funny thing is, like, we both also have an affinity for iRacing, and I think iRacing is ultimately what really hit off the friendship or helped it bond the most. Through that time period, we were both big sim racers and had our hands in the earliest editions of iRacing. And so when the pandemic came around, we both, maybe because we think alike and we have similar career trajectories and everything, we both saw the opportunity to race, to use the time in the pandemic to hone our skills on iRacing. And so we both not just participated in the Pro Invitational series and even beyond Pro Invitational, just the whole platform itself. We didn't just participate in that. I think, both of us fully invested in it. And I think you can see how we reap the benefits. I mean, the partnerships that came out of that for myself with, Blue Emu and Parker with the eNASCAR team and really all that kind of synergy is what formed eRacr in the summer of 2020. And so we were just fully invested in sim racing and then obviously the continuation of our similar lives has continued to pan out. The biggest difference in our two lives is I have enough children to go between us, while he's still, the single life, not single. He's in a healthy relationship, but for a married guy, we
clarify there quickly, right?
Yeah. Thanks. Basically, Landon has enough. Yeah, Landon's got enough kids to start the Landon Cassill Formula One team, and I've
pit stop with 18 people.
I've kept it lean over here. Yeah, he can have a full pit stop. So I think one thing, just to expand on that, like in that period of summer 2020, to give you credit, and as you mentioned, we were part of the earliest. I was on an email chain of the original first email that was like, "Hey, when the pandemic hit, we should do an iRacing race with all the cup drivers, and everything with Steve and everyone." So I felt very attached. What's that?
You should frame that. That's
I know.
History.
So it's true. That's a great point. We should do that. But then, from that moment onward, as Landon said, we really, leaned into the Pro Invitational, which was a cool experience considering what was going on in the world at the time, right? And from that moment, just struck up a friendship. We practiced a lot, and then Landon came to me and said, "Hey, I want to do like a big event. He's like, what would?" Because he had done the LCQC if you remember back, the Landon Cassill qualifying challenge, which I think I participated back, Landon, when you were, qualifying in the Cup Series all the time. And it was a really cool idea where hundreds of sim racers had to do, try to go through this bracket to become, do one lap for a huge amount of money. And off that, I think it spawned your idea of like doing an even bigger event. And that's when the 87 car was coming out. And it was like, you just said, "I want to do the Firecracker 400. And I thought, well, that's really cool. I'm in. So that's the genesis of it. And, it's been cool to see it come to life. And then that first year, I could not believe the response, and I could not believe how much money we spent making it happen and how well it worked on this service and, the platform that iRacing provided to do it. And it was so cool. And over 350 competitors that year or something. And then to see what it became in 2021 was insane. And now, in its third edition, I was just saying earlier, I feel like, to me, this is the second highest amount of competitors. So more than 2020, not quite as many as 2021, but the enthusiasm and the dedication of the competitors this time around, and even the recognition amongst just viewers and people in the racing industry that have come up to me over the last couple of weeks, they've been paying attention. It's unbelievable, what this has become and sort of the brand and what it's, what it's known to be. And so it's just a really cool event, but I got to give Landon credit in that, it came from his brain.
It's funny going into some of the original goals of the Firecracker 400 when we were like, let's make this event huge. One of our main guiding principles of this event, as eRacr, right? Not just even beyond just Parker and Landon putting on the Firecracker 400, like the eRacr team and everybody that puts the event on. One of our guiding principles was that we wanted to make our competitors feel important. We wanted to make celebrities out of them if we could. We wanted to make superstars out of them if we could. Maybe superstars is a better word, because we wanted the event to be so big and so important that that it meant something to these drivers and it wasn't just another fun sim race. And that goes down to every detail, like the format of the event and how difficult it is to navigate through the event, and just making it to the Firecracker 400 itself isn't just reserved for the best sim racer. It's really just the best sim racer of that day. And the one with the most luck, maybe at times. We talk about weather variation and things like that. But also our promotion of the event. One of the original things that we did in the days leading up to the event of the original Firecracker was we made hero cards for each starter in the race, because we wanted them to have something special that like recognize their accomplishment that they would promote on social media, and use to promote the event. Because, again, our goal is that we want to make these competitors superstars. And it's funny because in the second edition, and now 2 years later in this third edition of the Firecracker 400, one of the biggest accomplishments or maybe biggest satisfaction I get out of that goal is when I see our competitors with sponsors for the Firecracker 400. And these are, we don't we have our own partners of the event and our own sponsors that, because we spend, like Parker said, we spend a lot of money to put on this event, and we help subsidize that with sponsorship. We get nothing out of our competitors getting sponsorship, but it's so cool to see them out there fundraising for their paint schemes and promoting partnerships and legitimate, partnerships across the industry, whether they're racing endemic or non-racing endemic. We've seen it all, and we see them promoting on our timelines. And to me, that is like one of the ultimate signs that our initiative is working, that we want this to be, important, to the point that maybe corporate America is going to look at this and be like, how can we be involved in this event?
That's excellent.
For sure. I want to go back to that format just for a second, because by the time this comes out, we're going to be preparing for the big show, the 400 miler, but it's 3 weeks to get to that Wednesday night race. So the 43 drivers that are there, I want to go back to the beginning. How did they get there? Because it's a very complex and detailed qualifying over multiple weeks. You mentioned weather variables. There's so much going on. How did these drivers get there?
You want to take this or me?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of talking, but I will start with I will take this one too. So I think it's to go all the way back to the beginning. I do want to start with the race itself. The spirit of the race itself is that we wanted to replicate the original Firecracker 400. It's very similar to the thought of replicating an Indy 500 on iRacing or a Daytona 500 on iRacing. You want to have those important elements like the duels and, those the twin races or the 4-lap qualifying. For the Firecracker back then in 1987, it was 2 rounds of qualifying. Or at least that was a hallmark of that period, was 2 rounds of qualifying. Obviously with these cars, they're very special because just running a 87 car around Daytona fully trimmed out at 200 miles an hour is actually no easy task. So that was the most important thing, was like, okay, we want to have a 43 car field that was made up from 2-round qualifying, right? But we also want an event that can support hundreds of competitors. So we had to figure out, how do we go from 300 or 400 or 500 competitors down to, let's say, 88 competitors, so that those 88 competitors can do our 2-round qualifying. And then they can be split. 88 is a meaningful number, and it has a lot to do with the size of the servers and things like that. But it was a meaningful number that said, hey, a lot of guys are going to invest in single car qualifying. Not all of them are going to make it, right? So we basically custom created this format, this tournament bracket, to go from 400, 500. It can manage up to about almost 500 competitors. And that is very similar to what you would see at like the Knoxville Nationals or the Chili Bowl, where the competitors are grouped into prelim sessions, prelim events. At the Chili Bowl, it's everybody runs Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. And within those prelims, I think we fill out an entire server. So there's 62 drivers in each prelim. And there is where they have to go through single car qualifying, a heat race, where there's no cautions in the heat race, so those are a little bit wild. And then a consolation race. If you don't transfer through your heat race, there's a consolation race which has soft cautions. So
lenient cautions,
I think is our actual terminology for that. And then that field gets narrowed down into a somewhere around 36 to 40 car field, where we take the top 11 out of that prelim feature, 40 lap feature. There's a pit stop. We adjust the fuel load so that there has to be some strategy involved. We take the top 11 out of that. That's what gets our 88 car 2-round qualifying field. So the reason it takes 3 weeks is because one of our other original principles of this was we wanted to take time. We want to consume iRacing for 3 weeks. We want to take up everybody's time for 3 weeks because we feel like that is part of this emotional commitment that makes the event important. I hope that my 43 drivers, when we get to Wednesday, after all of the prelim stress and the open qualifying, and they went from fixed setups to open setups and all this stuff, that they get to Wednesday and they are so exhausted that they're just sick and they're nervous and and when the race is over, I want the depression to set in that it's over, because that's what makes things important. That's what makes things feel, that's what brings out the emotion, and that's what you enjoy the whole. You ultimately you enjoy it. I'm being a little dramatic, but that commitment is what makes the event important.
You guys have definitely done a lot of that in terms of making it weaving it into the fabric of sim racing. It's really amazing. So,
and if I could just add on to that, the 3 weeks also allows storylines to play out, content. That was, as Landon said, consume iRacing, but consume the conversation for that time period. To us was something that, in real racing, they've gotten away from that, right? The Indy 500 used to be a month long. The Daytona 500 Speed Weeks was a month. It's all now being condensed because of costs and financial reasons and that sort of thing to shorter time periods. And for us, one of the other guiding principles of working with you guys at iRacing and the amazing platform you provide to us is it allows us to do what real racing can't, right? And right now, if you went to someone in real racing and said, we're going to make a almost month-long event, they would look at you like you're insane, because that would cost $1 bajillion and no one could feasibly do it. And on iRacing, we can do that. So I think that's one part that really, allows the sim racing sort of motorsport tournament to play out. I know that you've got the Chili Bowl and you've got Knoxville Nationals, that sort of thing. But I think for this, the idea of a stock car race and 400 miles and that sort of thing, it can live on as a month-long event, basically, in iRacing. And that the tournament aspect to me is my favorite part, because I know I've been a part of, all the great special events you guys do. I've done the Indy 500. I've done the, 24 Hours of Daytona, which is one of my favorite. The 24 Hours of Nürburgring, at the Bathurst 12-hour. Those are awesome. And you guys, have thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world all competing simultaneously. I think the Firecracker is sort of the idea of, hey, how can we have almost everyone feel like they're in the same race, right? And they're going towards one race in general. And so maybe there's a little bit of limitation in terms of the size it could get to in the scale, but it does allow it to feel pretty big when hundreds of people are posting about it and that sort of thing. So
it's more inclusive. I mean, that was it's not, and nothing against leagues, because leagues are a very good thing and they serve a great purpose. But leagues are almost by definition exclusive, right? Because you have a limited number of field, and it's the same drivers over and over a week, kind of achieving a goal of a points championship or something. It has to sort of limit itself to that group of drivers, where we're taking the same concept of a league, right? Because we're taking weeks to promote and put on this event. Even the weeks before the event actually starts, there's practice races and this community building around it, because people get together and they race together. It actually almost operates as if we came to the public and said, hey, we want to put on a 6-week league where the 1987 car runs, right? Where in this league, we're just going to run Daytona with the 1987 car for 6 weeks straight. Except it's not a league, it's a tournament, right? So it's way more inclusive. It's scalable. The flexibility of the competitors is way more scalable. We can support hundreds of competitors, and they're all racing against each other regularly through their practice races and the prelims and qualifying and things like that. but it's not exclusive like a league.
It's funny you say that, because one of our big things this year, one of the big pushes at iRacing, is community building. There's already enough real world barriers to entry to real world racing. You two have lived that life. That's why people got involved in sim racing, because they didn't have the financial means or the luck to make it to the big show. Yet there's, other places where now that you're seeing more and more barriers be put up in sim racing. But with iRacing special events or events like this, the barriers dropped. If you can wheel it, you can get in the race. And that's why I think this is such a cool event, even though it's not one of our regular iRacing official special events. It kind of falls into it.
This might be the only sort of private event that we've ever promoted.
Yeah.
We talk about, but this
that.
one we get excited about. Usually we're like, oh, we want to talk about our stuff, but this one's really cool.
But it's such an added value to the community, and you guys do such a great job promoting it, and it's a ton of fun. And you're right, though, you guys take over iRacing, especially the oval side for this period of time. That's all anybody's talking about. That's all social media is talking about. Spa's over, and now it's Firecracker. And that's the reason that we, berated you guys to get on a podcast at, 11 o'clock on a Monday morning. So, yeah, I just think it's super cool.
And just the way you've set some of these things up, I mean, Landon, you've got such a history with qualifying on iRacing and these 2 rounds of qualifying, but I think my favorite part is the weather variable. And when you go into second round qualifying and you've got to gamble if you're not in the top 20 that's already made it in. And is it going to be a cooler day? Is it going to be a warmer day? And we saw some surprises this year in setting the grid.
Yeah.
Wait, real quick. Hold on. Have you hung out in our Discord, though, in the competitors chat? Because I don't know if they agree with the weather variation.
We've been there.
Oh, you mean competitors don't like the rules? Oh, that never happens.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the so not to. I don't want to make fun of competitors in any way, but just so they know, as real race car drivers, we deal with, as everyone knows in racing, immense amount of variables. I like to say racing is the art of basically managing unlimited variables, right? And that's part of the Firecracker 400 lore, is that this was a grueling race, right? That was incredibly tough. And so we want that to be a part of the sim racing version. And part of that is making it as realistic as possible with the weather variation you guys provide on the platform, and therefore using that. And that means you're not always going to get the ideal conditions, which is a wonderful discussion on our Discord each and every Firecracker 400. And this year, maybe more spectacular than ever. But for us, we love it, because it's like, hey, as much as you guys are frustrated, that is everything we go through week in and week out in real life racing.
One of my favorite competitor moments on that discussion was when our dear friend Blake McCandless, who obviously you guys know him well at iRacing, and we know him well at eRacr because of how much he helps out. He's an absolute staunch supporter, I think, is that the right word, of what we do at eRacr, and participates in everything we do. When he finally made a comment in our Discord and a frustration with the weather variability and felt like it was too high, and that the weather variable was just too high, and the weather was changing too quickly, and the track was changing too quickly, and I simply just responded to his message and said, you either die a hero or you live long enough to complain about eRacr weather format, qualifying formats. But it's funny, the other thing, and not, I'm not trying to just minimize any complaints about that, because our rule book is a living, breathing document, and that's one thing that we do with these events that is difficult, that iRacing can't do or doesn't do with the official events. The operations of this event isn't entirely scalable. It's very labor intensive. We're taking on this manual task of adjusting some rules and formatting and using certain parts of the service to create this sort of custom event. And it fits just perfect for this audience that we're trying to make. But, our everything is living and breathing and nothing is perfect. And so we're constantly trying to improve it. But, for a lot of the weather complaints that I've gotten this year, especially because the weather was so volatile in real Daytona over the course of 2 days, and that translated into our weather for that Firecracker 400 qualifying. We had some people that were just truly critical of it, and were like, it just needs to be fixed weather, or they want to blame iRacing and say that iRacing has issues with their weather. And my response to that is like, hey, anybody who has an issue with the weather changing and it changing the speed on, in your qualifying and from one car to the next has never tried to qualify at Indianapolis Motor Speedway at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because a single cloud on a day that it's 75 degrees, but the forecast is going to be 90 in 2 hours, and there's some clouds in the sky, and you're trying to make one lap around a 2.5 mile racetrack, the variation. And here's another actually thing that puts this all together. Our field in the Firecracker 400 is so tight and so competitive. We're talking about hundredths of a second, right? Well, in real life at Indianapolis Motor Speedway or any of these big tracks, the reason I use Indy as an example is because it's a big track that we used to qualify in the morning. A single cloud could swing your lap 0.3 of a second or 0.4 of a second, not 3 or 4 hundredths. Right. And so for these drivers in the Firecracker to be upset because they're like, man, I had a pole winning car. Somehow I went from having a top 5 capable car and I didn't even make the cut. I'm like, well, shoot, the cut from 1st to 20th in our race is only 2 hundredths or a couple hundredths. So, it's in my mind, I see some of the weather variability that's on the platform and that's happening. And I'm like, I don't know. I still think it's realistic.
It's a feature.
It's a
Not a
feature.
bug.
It's not a bug.
We've been there. Kevin and I have had this discussion and been on the receiving end of this argument. Remember, we tried changing the open qualifying for a special event a couple of years ago and had variable weather on, and I think I'm still getting
Similar conversations.
Yeah,
it's tough though. Like it's one of those things. And not, I know we want to keep talk about Firecracker stuff, and I want to keep talking about it, but I do want to make a point that this is where it's tough to make decisions, and rely on driver feedback because the drivers inherently want what's most comfortable, most predictable, what makes them feel best behind the wheel. It's just, I used to have this frustration when we would do Goodyear tire tests because I was racing full time in the Cup Series. So we'd go do a Goodyear tire test, and you, as the driver, you're driving these different tires, and they're giving you these tires, and you're out there by yourself. You're not in a racing environment, and they go, "Which tire did you like better?" And it's like, well, you asked me that question. I'm going to tell you I like the one that had the most grip, that was the fastest, that had the least amount of fall off. And my car drove the best on that tire. Like, it's inherent for me to say I liked that tire. It was more fun to drive. It had more grip. But then you get in the race and you go, oh, this tire sucks. We can't race in traffic. It's got too much grip. There's no fall off. It's, like we never change the tires, or we only take right sides. And it's like, well, that's the tire we picked because at the test, you just asked me which one I liked better. So it's tough. It is tough to rely on drivers. I don't, we deal with it enough with the Firecracker. I can only imagine trying to build a whole platform and satisfy them.
Try setting an incident limit for the Spa 24.
Oh gosh.
We got close to the one in at the Rolex, the Daytona 24 Hours. We've run into that incident limit a couple times, so we know all about it.
Stay between the lines.
Yeah, stay on the track, Parker. That's the key.
That is the key. No, yeah, we won't go down track limits. Don't even bring that up.
45 minutes later.
Bus stop. I'm guessing exit of the bus stop. It would be where I'm.
That's what brought the LCQ League text chat back to life.
That's right.
We should just bring in, dynamic suspension where if you hit it enough, it just rips your suspension off eventually. Add to the realism. Nobody would ever get mad about that, ever.
There you go.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you guys taking the time to come on. Super stoked. Firecracker 400 qualifying for it is ongoing. We got the big event coming up this week.
What time's the main race? It's Wednesday, right? What time?
Yes, Wednesday. 8
9
p.m.
o'clock? 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
That was close.
Eastern. Yep.
Twitch. Yep.
All right. Excellent.
Perfect.
And Parker and I will be back in the studio with suits and ties with David Shieldhouse for the main event. The
You're not
Firecracker
going to dress like you're dressed now? Come on.
No. I'm not. I won't be.
And the 200s tonight as we're recording this on Monday. So, which is, just the one last thing on that is obviously the top 88 that make it to that second round all get a chance at a race because, aside from a couple alternates, because we do the Firecracker 200, which has a full field, and they race for considerable prize in that as well. And then, we have the Firecracker 400 on Wednesday. So, and the broadcast for the 200 is usually a different crew. And we got a different crew tonight. So we try to give it a little different flavor.
Cool. So, Chris, a little bit of pressure. Do you get this edited and out today so that we can promote the race tonight?
Yeah, come on, man.
He's like, stop
Let's go.
talking so I can get this edited.
Well, I do have one more question, though. Are you going to bring the suits and ties to the next recording of the Money Lap?
we should.
We'll
We should just go. We should go straight from Money Lap into Firecracker. So we're wearing. So we're in our full suit and ties. Yes, listen to the Money Lap podcast. Thank you for the plug there, Chris. Parker and I do have a podcast. We talk about all motorsports, not just NASCAR, as well as the Money Lap newsletter that goes out 3 times a week. So that's been fun building that out.
Very cool.
All right, boys,
All right, well,
thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Yeah,
Kevin and I are going to
Thank
talk
you, guys.
all over each other for a little bit.
that's what we usually do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty much. Usually just him and I arguing on this podcast. That's fine. But
All right.
Parker Kligerman, Landon Cassill. Thanks a lot. Looking forward to the show this week. And yeah, we'll like to get you guys back on and talk about other iRacing endeavors in the near future. Also, we need to tell Parker about the time I broke his pace car at Lime Rock, but that's another story for me.
Oh, okay.
See you guys. Thank you.
See ya.